Hey, everybody. So, welcome into the very first of our Holy Week Bible Tidbits. So, I start here with America's classic hit Horse with No Name because today, of course, we're talking about Palm Sunday. So, what I wanted to do is put together just some Bible tidbits for Holy Week this week since we don't have access the way we normally would to the liturgy. And so I hope that you watch a live stream of it or at least look up the readings and pay attention because there's so much that happens during this great Holy Week that is just beautiful. And really just we take time to really reflect upon the passion, death, resurrection of Jesus Christ and what that means for us as Christians, his saving work, kind of this high holy time of year for us as Christians. But since we can't go to church and participate fully like we normally would, I figured I'd throw some quick little tidbits out there, walking through each day of Holy Week and the readings the church puts forth, just to dig a little bit more deeply into them and to see a little bit more about why she does it this way and what God has in store for us. So here we go. Woohoo! I'm going to make myself a tiny bit smaller. There we go. So at the beginning of Palm Sunday liturgy, there typically is a procession with palms. And so the back of the church, they'll have a reading from the gospel, and then everybody comes in with the palms. They'll usually bless all the palms. There's a whole beautiful rite kind of at the beginning of the liturgy before Mass starts. And in there, we read this account from Matthew 21, when it says that Jesus and his disciples drew near to Jerusalem, came to Bethphage on the Mount of Olives. Jesus sent two disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village, and you will find there an ass tethered and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them here to me. And if anyone should say anything to you, reply, the master has need of them, and he'll send them at once." This happens that what had been spoken through the prophet might be fulfilled. Say to daughter Zion, behold, your king comes to you, meek and riding on an ass and on a colt, the foal of a beast of burden. Which, side note, I thought about starting this episode with the Rolling Stones song "Beast of Burden," but I thought your Horse with No Name fits. And so the disciples do it, and they come back, and everything as Jesus said happens. Now, what's fascinating is the prophet being quoted here is from Zechariah. So in Zechariah 9:9, this would have been about 150 years before Jesus came. He's a later prophet. He writes, "Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout aloud, O daughter of Jerusalem. Lo, your king comes to you. Triumphant and victorious is he, humble and riding on an ass, on a colt, the foal of an ass." And so Jesus, in his triumphal entry on the Sunday of Holy Week, comes in on a donkey. So it's just a neat thing to see the fulfillment there from Zechariah. And there is a ton that happens during this Holy Week that comes straight out of Zechariah. It's like eerie how accurately he prophesied the events of Holy Week. And we'll look at those as we continue. But the psalm today, so the gospel reading for Palm Sunday is incredibly long. It's the entire Passion narrative this year from the Gospel of Matthew. So starting with the Last Supper, all the way through the crucifixion of Jesus. And that's because next Sunday will be Easter Sunday, and we'll read the account of the resurrection. And so while during Holy Week, the church has constant liturgies, including the Triduum, which we'll get to, which is Holy Thursday, Good Friday, into the Easter Vigil, not everybody's able to go to that. And so if you're just going every Sunday, which is the bare minimum, obviously, you want to hear the account of the Passion on Palm Sunday, and then the next Sunday would be Easter. So that being said, I don't want to look at the gospel because it's incredibly long. Instead, I wanted to zoom in on Psalm 22. The psalm prayed in the liturgy today starts with that famous line that Jesus utters from the cross, my God, why have you abandoned me?" And while the Gospels highlight that effect of Christ's abandonment, everybody left him, right? The 12, even Peter denied him. Everybody fled. The only person at the foot of the cross was his mother, Mary, the other Mary, and then John himself, the beloved disciple, in his account. They were the ones there as he's hanging on cross time. Everybody else had left him, abandoned him. He's dying utterly alone and humiliated. And this psalm appropriately highlights that sentiment. However, Christ, though he was alone and abandoned hanging on the cross, understands something bigger. And so he cries out, my God, why have you abandoned me?" Which is the beginning of the psalm. Now, we need to understand in the time of Christ, the Psalms weren't numbered as they are now. And so oftentimes the Psalms were understood or memorized, committed to memory by the first line of the prayer. Much like we've inherited as Catholics from the Jewish tradition, we talk about the Our Father, the Hail Mary, the Salve Regina, which is the Hail Holy Queen, et cetera, et cetera. If I said, let's pray a glory be, those are the first words to a prayer we all know. And so as Jesus is crying out these words from the psalm, any good Jew who studied the scriptures would think of Psalm 22. Now, what's unique about Psalm 22 is it's what we call a Todah psalm, or a thank psalm. These were psalms used for the thank offering, which is one of the offerings from the book of Leviticus in the temple. So the thank offering was offered. It was offered cakes, like cereal cakes, little things they would bake, or meat. And the priest made the offering, and the meat of the sacrifice was eaten. So the thank offering was a meal. And so if you wanted to give thanks to God, you went up to the temple with your offering, and the priest took part of it, and then he ate part of it and shared this little meal with God. And so this became understood as the thank offering. And there were specific psalms written for it. And then in later tradition came what's called the Todah cycle, in that in the psalm, there would be this lament. Oh God, I'm alone. Why have you abandoned me? Or just, things are going wrong. And then you would pray, God, please deliver me from whatever trial you're going through, whatever suffering is upon you. And then in the midst of the prayer, you'd make these vows. Lord, if you do deliver me, then I will give thanks to you, and I'll be loyal, make your name famous, etc., etc. And ended with praise. And then you took your thing up, your sacrifice up to the temple and offered it, giving thanks for the forthcoming deliverance. Psalm 22 is one of those psalms. And if you really pay attention to the words and the way that it ends with this idea of victory, of Christ crying out, victorious, that all people will be united under him, that he will be delivered, that God's glory will be known and is renowned to the ends of the earth. So while Jesus was alone and he was suffering and bearing the weight of sin on the cross, as he cries out, my God, why have you abandoned me? It is not solely saying, hey, I feel alone and abandoned even by God. But Jesus, understanding the importance of what he was doing on the cross, was crying out with that confidence that at the end of this, he himself, as the ultimate thank offering, would bring about this cycle for all people, that everybody under his sacrifice would be united and God's reign made known. So as we look at Palm Sunday, there's a lot going on in the liturgy, a lot of different fulfillment, but I wanted to highlight just this little psalm, that if we really look at the full text of Psalm 22, not only does it again eerily predict and prophesy the events that Christ would endure in his subsequent suffering and death on the cross, but it also recounted God's victory that would come, specifically to the one crying out to him, and that all peoples would share in that victory. And it's just a little neat tidbit for your Palm Sunday. So that's it for me. We'll see you tomorrow.